Well, what do we have here? A 2006 Nissan Pathfinder. It was dropped off by CAA last night. I'm trying to track down the owner. I got it on the scan tool. See if it starts now. As soon as see, and it's quit. And the radiator cooling fan is running for no reason. I got a battery charger on it, but the fan shouldn't be running. It's ice cold. I did drive it in. Let's try starting it. Where's the check engine light? Let's turn the key off and back on again. No check engine light. I don't see it. But I drove it in. Airbag warning light goes through, the bulb check and goes out. Four-wheel drive light, VCDS lights, those are all bulb checks. But no check engine light. But I did drive it in the shop and it started like there was nothing wrong. Well, let's scan it and see what it reports. Well, the first problem was it wouldn't automatically ID. Like it had no communication with the ECM, and then we did a network scan. It got into 9 computers, and I see some ugly codes right off the bat. In the transmission controller, we got a U1000 and a P1705. In the ABS, we got a steering angle sensor and CAN code, 2 CAN codes. In the all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, CAN code, body control, CAN code, tire pressure sensors. Power distribution module, CAN code. As you can see, there's a network issue going on here. That would explain why the radiator cooling fan is running. And I don't think we have communication with the ECM because I don't see it in the list. But I did drive it in the shop. No communication. Well, the first step would be to check fuses that supply power to the ECM, but a fuse doesn't normally fix itself. I did drive it in the shop. Okay, so I cycled the key a couple of times and I got the service engine soon light to come on, and now we got communication. We got a couple of catalyst deficiency codes, which they're kind of irrelevant given the problem, but it still won't start. Let's have a look at, I checked the fuses that I could see. And let's look at data. Maybe there's a voltage pit in the data that we can see now that we've got communication, but it won't start. The radiator cooling fan is no longer running. That's my engine, or my furnace fan running that you hear in the background. It will shut off in a second. Looking for voltage related PIDs. Should be around 13.2 volts because that ignition switch is on. So no voltage PIDs in that data list. Let's try the second data list. As I said, I did start the vehicle outside. It started fine. There, we got rid of that stupid furnace fan. Injector pulse milliseconds. Battery voltage 13.4, so that's good. Start signal off. That's odd. Well, we did have no communication, but now we do. Well, I got a recording of these codes. I'm going to do a all code clear and see how many controllers it had. Read 9 controllers. Let's see how many it erases codes from. I'll pick up when we get to the end of this. So it cleared codes from 10 controllers. So I'm going to attempt to start it. As you can see, the service engine soon light is on. Let's see if it'll start. So there goes the radiator fan now again. And I bet you we lost communication. All I did was cycle the key off for about 4 or 5 seconds. and turn it back on. That time it didn't come back on. See, it's with the check engine light on, the cooling fan is not running. So there's either a network problem or there's a PCM problem or power and ground problem to the PCM. So I'm going to retry a code scan and see what comes up now. Let's see if it talks to the ECM again. Seems like when the check engine light is on, it will communicate with the ECM. Yeah, no codes in the ECM, so the 420 and 430 catalyst code's erased. But we got a communication fault in the transmission controller. Well, while this is scanning, I'm going to take a look at some schematics. So having a look at the schematics here, and near as I can tell, there's one ignition feed comes from fuse 1. Goes down here, white red wire, goes all the way across all 4 of these pages and comes in here to this ignition switch on pin 109. I think that's 109. 109 or 110. And then there's hot at all times feed that comes in on pin 121. There's 2 grounds, 117, 116. Or 116, 115 I should say. And then there's a ground over here on pin 1 of the ECM. The ECM's in the engine control, or in the engine bay on the right rear corner by the right hood hinge. And there's CAN L and CAN H wires there. I was trying to figure out if there was an easy way to check for power. There's also a PCM power relay in here, but that relay doesn't feed power. As near as I can tell, that relay doesn't feed power to the ECM itself. There's the ECM power relay. That powers up all the injectors and ignition coils. Now the injectors are under the intake on them, so I can't easily check those. But I could go to one of the ignition coils and check for power at the, what color is this wire? Green wire right now. And see if we got power there. Going to check this ECM relay. That's also in the right rear engine compartment. It's called ECM relay, yet I don't see an ECM relay in the fuse panel. Anyways, we're going to check some fuses. Fuse 1, 10 amp. And on the last page here, fuse 20, 10 amp. So there's a number of relays in here, but I don't see any relay labeled ECM relay. And there's also a relay in here, but it's a horn relay. Fuse 1, which is supposed to be a 10 amp fuse. The fuses aren't labeled or numbered here. Looking at all the 10 amp fuses: trailer tow, tail lamp, illumination, headlamp, and trailer. AC compressor, daytime running lights, AT ECU, that one right there is a 10 amp, ABS ECU, reverse lamp. Oh boy, these wiring diagrams can be challenging. And there's the ECU is right here. I'm not sure if it's easier to take the ECU out, if there's enough wiring harness here that we can get at it and see if we got power to those pins. Even the ignition coils aren't that easy to get to. This one on this side might be easier. Yeah, let's try one of these coils. See if we can get one of these coils disconnected here. And it was a green wire. Well, there's lots of green wires here. Well, I'll go by the location. There's only 3 wires to it. Well, I'll figure out which wire it is. So I do have power on that coil. I noticed something interesting here. Here's the feed wire coming from the ECM power relay, and it goes to a splice here, and from that splice every coil has a different color for the power to it. Why would you do that? It's coming from the same green wire, green, 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 but this one is light green. This one is white. This one is white. This one is orange. Jeez, because they can, I guess. Well, the ECM power relay has to be on, or we wouldn't have power at those coils. I think it's best we go find that computer, and I've tested all the fuses in this fuse panel and they all test good, even though they're not labeled, other than ones that don't have power on either side, and that was a fog lamp relay. So I'm going to take this cover off here and see if we can access the ECM. So there are two latched connectors at the ECM. The top connector contains one ground on pin 1, but the bottom connector contains 2 grounds on pin 115 and 116, battery power on pin 121, and ignition power on pin 109. I was able to get the top of the connector apart. This is the top half, but the bottom half, there's not enough wires to get it up, so I don't know what I'm going to do here. This ECM is held in with 1 bolt here and 1 bolt down underneath here, unless I move this wiring harness out of the way and the fuse panel out of the way. Unless this, maybe I can take this windshield washer bottle pipe out. No, it's part of it, so it comes up through the fender. I suppose I could try and remove that. Give me a little bit more room. I'll give it a try. So you can hear the electric cooling fan is running with the ECM disconnected. So this pin here, 121, is supposed to be battery power. Now, normally it'd be face view, but it appears to be a mirror image. So this pin here should be ignition power, and it's not. So I'm confused here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got the key in the run position. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try the other side. Okay, now I'm really confused. Normally a picture of a connector is looking into the face of the connector. So on the schematic, 121 is battery power. Okay, that makes sense. That's 121 right there. And they're all on the same side. So I got ignition power. I'm going to load test these. This test light only draws about 150 milliamps, so I'm going to put a bigger load on that. So pin 109, which is ignition power, runs a headlight. And this one, which is battery power, runs a headlight. So let's qualify the grounds. We'll switch the terminals around. So these two are grounds. And as you can see, they light the headlight up. That one. And pin 1 on the other ECM connector, which should be this one. That's not lighting it up. Let's see if it lights up a lower load. So this one here is the pin, although that doesn't look like it according to the schematic. Pin 1 on the left hand side there. That one lights the headlight. So the powers and grounds check okay, although a bit confusing. This terminal layout is theoretically backwards. Because this is the way the connector is sitting in there. And that pin 1 should be this one. I gotta take the back off this connector and see. So after doing a bit more research on this vehicle, I come to the realization that this diagram, this picture of the connector view on the ECM is back probing, not looking into the face of the connector. And as I said before, when you look at this connector, there's no numbers on it. But today, on closer examination, right inside the actual connector, maybe I can see that if I turn this light on, there is numbers at the very top up here, numbered 1, 2. So this is number 1 and this is number 2, which is the exact opposite of this view here. So this is a harness side back probing picture, or looking into the face of the ECM. So I've retested all these powers and grounds and they're all good. There's nothing wrong. But 119, 120 I believe are power from the ECM relay. And remember, I did test the ECM relay, but I tested with a minor test light, key on, engine off. The ECM relay supplies power to 2 of these pins, I think 119 and 120. I'll double check that. And it also supplies power to the injectors and ignition coils, but if it's not running, those loads are on there. So I'm going to load this circuit to check it again. Here's a picture of the circuit I'm talking about. The ECM power relay is ground side controlled by the PCM on pin number 111, and it's labeled SSOFF, and I didn't know what that acronym stood for, but I figured it out. It's self shut off, like an ASD relay. And this circuit here goes off to the ignition system and the injectors, and this circuit comes down and feeds pin 119 and 120. So we're going to ground pin 111 and see if we got power in pin 119, 120. And that comes from the battery, so we can do it without the key on. We don't have to listen to that radiator cooling fan. So here's what I'm doing. I've got a pin attached to pin 111, which is the third one in on the top row here. And I'm going to supply a ground through a test light to the control side of that relay, which is powered by battery all the time. That should turn the ECM relay on and supply power to pin 119 and 120. So there's 120 with the test light, in this case a headlight connected to it. And when I apply power to it, or ground I should say, through a test light, you can hear the relay turn on, but my headlight doesn't light up. There, it lit up that time. That's the ECM power relay that's failing. Let's move it to the other pin, which is the next one in. Make sure you use the appropriate size terminal so that you don't compromise the pins in the ECM. And of course, supplying a ground to that relay, you can hear it click and it turns on. But the first couple of times it didn't turn on. So that ECM power relay lives down in here. It's the second one over on this integrated junction box. So we're going to take that relay out and try swapping it. So I believe it's the second relay over, this one right here. One of these is the fog lamp relay, so we can switch it with the fog lamp relay, but I'm going to see if I have one of those relays. So I just so happen to have some Nissan relays out of another Rogue that I was working on. You might have seen that video just posted a few days ago. Oh, I haven't uploaded that video yet. That's one still work in process. So I'm going to put this relay in place of it. So there's the relay installed. I'm going to ground it with a test light. That's me being jumpy. Okay, let's put it back together again and see if the problem is resolved. So let's see how this thing works now. Key on, check engine light on. A little bit of timing chain rattle, but other than that, it's running. We're going to have to clear some codes out of it because I'm sure we generated some codes with the ECM unplugged. It would be network codes. But note the check engine light comes on with the key and stays on. Well, let's clear the codes. So if you remove the battery, you can see ground E24 and E15 right there. So I'm going to clean these grounds. I'm also going to fix these two grounds because they're sketchy as well. So I'm going to be proactive here and replace these terminals on here, clean them up. I think those are ignition coil grounds, but if I'm not mistaken, they could also be speed sensor grounds. Regardless, we're going to do that, then put the battery back in and clean the battery cables as well. So I've loaded the vehicle again out of history. I'm not going to bother doing a network scan because I know there's going to be a whole whack of network codes because of having the ECM disconnected. And I think I have the key on. Let me double check. Yep, key is on. Scan tool is connected via Bluetooth. There we go. And clear all codes read by code scan. So we'll pick up when we get to the end of this. So there's all the codes cleared out of 10 controllers. Just going to go back into the ECM here and look at some data here. I think the second data parameter had system voltage in it. I took that relay apart. I can't really see anything wrong with it. The schematic shows that this relay has a diode in it across the coil. So I would strongly recommend that you put the right relay in. I don't have a part number because I used a used one from another Nissan. Well, battery voltage 13.4 volts. I have a battery charger on it now. So I took these grounds off and cleaned up the surfaces, and I cleaned up the grounds on the battery or on the fender inside here. I also replaced the positive cable end, put a marine cable clamp on here, and sealed it. A new ring terminal on this accessory wire for the aftermarket lights. So I'm going to do a network code scan again because I see the traction control light is on. When it came in, it had a number of codes related to the network. Let's see what's come back. And again, this takes forever, so I'll pick up when we get to the end. So we got a network communication code between the ABS module and the steering angle sensor, and a steering angle sensor fault, and that's disabling the all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive system. Probably. Now those codes were there before when I scanned it. They're not new codes, so that's a secondary issue. I'm sure that was a pre-existing problem. I'm just going to try and clear the codes out of the ABS in case the network codes didn't clear. ABS identification. Turn ignition on to verify the existence of the following in the instrument panel. ABS, ABS lamp. It has this one. VDC and VDC lamp, 1 second. Okay, so what does that tell us? ABS, VDC, and TCS. ABS, VDC, TCS, HSA, HDC. Well, that was helpful. How do we know if it's got... I never saw an HDC lamp, so we're going to go with the first option. This one. Clear codes. Too many varieties of vehicles today. How can one mechanic be proficient at fixing everything? Come on, it's just one module you're asking to clear codes. Wow. Let's read them again. As I mentioned before, Nissan seems to be painfully slow reading and clearing codes, at least with this scan tool anyways. Steering angle sensor fault. Okay, well, I'll talk to them about that. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.